How's it going, everyone? I'm Dono, and this is How to Happy. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to have better conversations by asking deeper questions. So you may have had this experience before where you meet someone and you don't really know what to talk about, so you're both just standing there like, hey, and then it just gets awkward and there's this really long pause, and then eventually someone's like, okay, well, see you later. And they walk off and you just had this really awkward moment in time. So there's a couple things that you can do to kind of overcome that so that it doesn't happen as often. One of the first things that you can do is to start asking questions. Most people really like to talk about themselves, so if you can ask questions about them and get them to open up, a lot of times you can keep the conversation going. A big part of this is actually being interested in what they have to say, right? You need to actually pay attention. Otherwise, you're going to say, hey, how did you get this job? And they'll say something and then you're not really paying attention and you can't follow up, right? That's also going to kill the conversation. So if you're going to ask questions, you need to be paying attention and you need to be interested in asking follow-up questions and really learning more about whatever they want to talk about. Most people want to talk about what they're interested in and what their passions are. So a lot of times once you can open one of these threads, it gets you into a much longer natural conversation. Another part of that is when you ask questions, you need to gauge their response, right? So if you start asking questions and it's something that they seem interested in talking about, then keep going along that thread. But if you ask a question and they seem like they don't really want to talk about it, maybe try another angle, right? You can ask questions and people will talk about whatever you're asking them about, but if they're interested in it, it's going to be a lot more natural and quicker of a conversation. Many of you are already going to be familiar with this idea of just asking questions to keep the conversation going, so I want to make this video a little bit more impactful for you and give you a little bit more information. So one of the things that you can do to ask better questions is to make sure that they're open-ended, right? So an open-ended question would be, how did you end up getting this job? Or what do you like about the work you do? Or how do you plan on growing your career in the next couple of years? Types of questions, because those all take much longer answers as opposed to something like, how many years have you been working here, right? That's a question that you can answer very quickly in 1 or 2 words. When you ask an open-ended question, it's going to make the other person more likely to start talking about their thought process and give you a more involved answer, which, like I was saying before, will probably lead to a more engaging conversation. Another thing that you can kind of think about as you're asking these questions is to look for emotionally charged topics. Now, there are some topics that just naturally lend themselves to people's emotions more often than others. So for example, if you ask, how did you set up your budget, which is an open-ended question, it may not be something that a lot of people are passionate about, as opposed to how did you meet your wife or how did you propose to her type of questions, which could take a lot more emotional space and it's something that they're more likely to engage with. Now, you may run into people who are really interested in stuff like that budget topic. So you need to just get the feelers that I was talking about earlier so that you kind of know where they're at and what they're interested in. But typically there are some topics that are more emotionally involved than others. So you may want to keep the questions a little bit light to begin with, right? Build up a little bit of a baseline of rapport, but then don't be afraid to start getting into a little bit deeper questions, right? Something like what was the worst moment of your life might be a little bit too heavy for an opening conversation, but you can slowly work your way up through these different emotional levels and get to know the person better. That's more likely to create a connection if you're actually talking about things that people care about instead of, the standard, well, what's your favorite color, right? That's not enough to really bring up these really strong bonds. Now, this isn't gonna work in every situation. Some people don't really like to talk about what they're interested in. Some people just aren't very wordy, right? They're not gonna open up the conversation. But asking questions can generally keep your conversations a little bit longer, and it will end up with people liking you a bit more because they feel like you genuinely care about them and what they're interested in. While it won't fix everything, asking questions is just another tool that you can have in your arsenal to build better relationships through better conversations. Let's move on to the exercise section. Number 1, start a conversation today by asking questions about someone's life. It can be anyone, just focus on asking questions. 2, Practice coming up with a few open-ended questions you can use for meeting new people. So like I said, just go out there, try to find somebody, ask some questions, focus on the quality of your questions so that you can open up conversations a little bit more. And that's all I've got for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, topics you want me to cover, throw them down in the box below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. And I will see you next time.
You can check out more content at howtohappy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos. We've also got a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you can check out. Reflect, take action, and enjoy life. See you next time.